Ink. Written and read by Castile left his mark on me. Summary. Misha spots something new, a tattoo on the skin of his favorite green-eyed co-star. This sparks a rousing conversation about more potential ink. Teasing ensues. Typical Cockles. The makeup trailer fell quiet after an hour had passed. Jensen and Misha would still say something here and there, but mostly the two sat quietly in their chairs, staring at their phones as the artists did their work. A grueling fight scene had to be filmed next, and both Dean and Cass were getting the brunt of the beating. Therefore, both Jensen and Misha were getting the brunt of the makeup. Sam was the lucky one, out saving the girl as usual. So Jared spent all of 10 minutes getting some fake blood smattered across his face before he bolted, talking about some giant burrito he was going to go eat, while the other two sat and suffered. It was unfair. So Jensen and Misha spent the first 45 minutes devising some plot to get him back. But after they both got smacked a few times for laughing and moving too much, they decided to save the rest of the plotting for later. "All right, I think your face is done. Now take off that robe so we can get to work on the chest wound," Sabrina says, tapping Jensen on the shoulder afterwards to make sure that he heard her. "Sorry? Oh, yeah. Right." Jensen groans before getting up and setting his phone on the counter, giving Misha a look to punctuate his displeasure with all this. These long makeup routines are always the most boring, and sometimes even the most excruciating parts of their jobs. The hooks and fake glass and prosthetics they're forced to wear can be pretty painful. Thankfully, today's work only involves a lot of paint and rubber applications, but it's still tedious. After another moment of watching Sabrina move to the side, giving Lance some room to pull out all the stuff he'll need to apply the fake rubber wound, Jensen finally shrugs off his robe and steps in front of the two so they can get to work on his chest. "All right, lift your arms high," Lance directs, and Jensen does as he's told, stretching up until his fingertips are brushing the trailer's ceiling. "Will I need to keep them up for long?" Jensen asks, hoping that the answer will be no. "Well, if you hold really still, it should be set in about 50 minutes. Can you manage that?" Sabrina laughs, knowing that Jensen has no other choice. "Guess I'll have to." "That's the price you pay for being the lead," Misha snarks, turning to look at Jensen just before getting whacked in the face with a makeup brush. "Stop moving!" Sarah spits, quickly pinching Misha's chin and pulling it back to face the mirror. "Geez, so bossy." "I have to be. You two never listen," the poor woman laments, because it's true. Jensen and Misha are the worst when it comes to getting their makeup done. They're always fidgeting or giggling or throwing things at one another. Oddly enough, Jared doesn't get many complaints when he's in the chair, which seems impossible since he's normally an overactive puppy chewing on everything in sight. Yet, when he's in this trailer, he's actually very well behaved. Jensen says it's because he prizes his looks over everything else, but Misha thinks it's because the guy is actually scared of all the makeup ladies, and going off of the look he now sees in Sarah's eye, Misha can't really blame him. In the grand scheme of things, though, they've been pretty good today, so Misha doesn't feel too bad just yet. "Hey, don't let me in with him," Jensen squawks, dropping an arm so he can point in Misha's direction. "Stop moving!" Jensen grits his teeth and winces, turning back slowly to mouth sorry to Sabrina and Lance, who are both giving him very disapproving looks now, because the base they've just applied is peeling right back off of his skin. "Ha! See? You're just as bad as me," Misha sneers, taking another peek at his friend from the corner of his eye, but this time he's careful not to move. He eventually settles for observing Jensen through the mirror, only catching obscured glimpses every now and then. But it's just enough to make him notice something that he's almost certain wasn't present only a short time ago. There, just below the pit of Jensen's left arm, is a black mark, only about 2 inches long. "What is that?" he asks after another fruitless moment of trying to get a better look. "What's what?" Jensen responds, through a clenched jaw, doing his best now to stay still. "Under your arm. What is that?" Misha watches as Jensen's curiosity gets the better of him, and he bends in a bit to try and see what the guy is talking about. "Oh God, seriously?" Lance groans, just as Jensen dislodges the base for the prosthetic a second time. Shit, sorry. But Lance doesn't seem too forgiving now. Hold on, I need to go back to my truck and get more putty. Jensen frowns as he watches the man get up from his stool and exit the trailer. Sorry, dude, he calls out after him, but going by the slamming of the door, he imagines that Lance doesn't want to hear it. Damn, you really need to hold still, Misha laughs, nervously, knowing that a similar reaction is probably awaiting him. Jensen nods before looking guiltily back to Sabrina. Sorry, he mutters again, but she just waves him off. She's far more used to these shenanigans than Lance is. Even though the guy has worked with them plenty over the years, he's still part of a separate props and prosthetic studio, and is not on their set day in and day out like she is. He'll get over it, she says with a sigh. But I guess you have a break for a few minutes, so use it while you got it. Jensen nods as he watches the woman move to the other end of the trailer to start prepping for some of Misha's applications, far enough away that the men can no longer hear her talking to herself. So let me see it. Jensen finally turns back around to the sound of Misha's request. See what? Your new ink. I never pegged you for the type to get a tattoo. Jensen scrunches up his face a moment, unsure as to what his friend is talking about. But then he remembers. He does have a tattoo now. It's so new, he still forgets that it's there sometimes. Oh, yeah. It's something I've been thinking about for a while, he mumbles, reaching up to rub the back of his neck. But then he stops, remembering the makeup that was just painstakingly applied there. Misha leans forward some so that he can see more clearly, halting just as Sarah gasps and pulls back the brush from his cheek. Crap, sorry, he yelps, but the damage is already done. The burns that she was stabbing so delicately into the hollows of his face have now smeared. Ugh, whatever. I guess you can take a break too. I need to wait until this dries before I can chip it off and start all over again, Sarah hisses as she rolls her eyes at the both of them. The woman then tosses her brush onto the counter and storms away, griping about how she should have been a chef. They're gonna kill us one of these days, Jensen says, as both of him and Misha watch her fume at the other end of the trailer. Lord knows they're already used to the gore, Misha adds on, feeling pretty bad now. He doesn't mess everything up intentionally. He just has a knack for it. After a few more seconds, the men settle back into a calm, almost forgetting why the break happened in the first place. Oh yeah, Misha chirps suddenly. You were going to show me your new tattoo. Jensen blushes, kind of wishing that the guy hadn't noticed at all. He still feels a little silly forgetting it, even though it does actually mean a lot to him. Yeah. Well? Show me, Misha demands excitedly. With a final sigh, Jensen nods, stepping in closer, lifting his arm into the air so his friend can take a look. I got it to represent your kids, Misha jumps in, nodding as he raises his finger to ghost the outline of the ink. It's beautiful, Jensen. Jensen blushes even harder now. Thanks. Misha smiles up at him before looking back down at the image, a large arrow tied up in a knot, with scales at either end, keeping the whole thing balanced. Each element is unique, and not without its own personality, yet it all works together in perfect unison, just like Jensen's family. It's apt and simple, but intricate and thought-provoking. Misha absolutely loves it, and now he can't stop himself from staring at it as much as he can. What made you decide to get one? He asks, eventually, knowing that Jensen is probably getting uncomfortable with him gawking so much. Well, like I said, I've been thinking about it for a while, Jensen began shyly, finally lowering his arm back down, effectively covering up the small tattoo. When it was just JJ, I thought about getting her initials done, but no matter how I mocked it up, it just looked too simple. It didn't seem like a proper dedication. Then I thought about the scales, for justice, but those on their own just made it seem like I was really into law or something. I don't know, it just didn't feel right. But when the twins came, Misha insists, smiling as Jensen's face lights up. Yeah, when the twins came, I knew I could make something really special. So I worked with a tattoo artist that lives near our neighborhood, and he came up with this. It just seemed to work, and I really like how it turned out. Jensen soon twists on his heels and lifts his arm again, this time facing the mirror so he could look at the thing for himself. So Misha admires him admiring the piece, musing on how art begets art, and beauty begets beauty. It's something that he thinks he could write about right now, if he had a pen and a paper. Maybe he'll try it later, if he can keep this moment in his mind. Danny got all their names tattooed on her back, right between her shoulder blades. They each bend around to make a heart. It looks pretty cool. Well, she already had some tattoos, though, didn't she? Misha asked, quickly forgetting the poetic lines he was forming in his head. Yeah, just a few small things here and there. Stuff she got on a whim when she was younger. But I think this was the first one that really meant something to her. We both just want to do something special, now that it feels like our family's complete. Jensen sighs as he drifts off into memories from just the other day, falling asleep on the couch with a baby in each arm, as JJ danced across the living room and Daniil hummed and danced right along with her. He has truly never felt so happy, so at peace, so whole. I thought about getting one before, Misha jumps in, stirring Jensen from his daydream. Oh yeah? What of? Well, I was originally thinking of a compass rose. I wanted West's names to be on the western point, obviously, but that left the question of who would take up the other points. Then when Mason came along, I revisited the idea, thinking that I could have her at the eastern end and Vicky at the north. Jensen nods in understanding, before turning back to look at his friend in the eye. Who would have the southern point then? Misha shrugs. That's what kept me from getting it done all this time. Vicky and I always talked about having 3 kids, but now that we got 2, we're kind of talking ourselves out of it. Jensen barks out a laugh with that. Yeah, man. I didn't even get the practice with 2. It was just bam! 3 kids. No warning, no lifeline. It's insane. I can believe it. Misha laughs as well, eventually shaking his head at the terrifying idea of yet another baby to deal with. But without a 3rd kid, that leaves the 4th point unaccounted for. Well, you could always put your name there. Make it like parents at the north and south and kids at the east and west, a representation of your family, Jensen offers confidently, fairly proud of himself for the clever idea. I thought about that too, Misha replies, and Jensen sags a little. I just feel so egotistical, tattooing my name on myself. I mean, I know I'm amazing, but I probably don't need to flaunt it that much. Jensen busts up yet again, before shoving Misha over in his chair. The two chuckle and wipe happy tears from their eyes, careful not to do much more damage to their already skewed makeup. But seriously, Misha begins again, after they each have settled down. If I was going to get a tattoo, I'd want it to represent the people that I love, the ones I'd die for, you know. And Jensen does know, because that's exactly why he got his done in the first place. But even with that in mind, he's not quite ready to be super serious just yet. Well then, just put my name at the southern end, if you want to keep with the theme. He closes his eyes and starts to laugh some more, not expecting to see Misha standing face to face with him when he opens back up. The blue was warm and soft, and the man's smile doesn't hint towards a lick of humor, so it leaves Jensen breathless, and when Misha leans in close and whispers, You know, that's not a bad idea. Not a bad one at all. All right, got the extra putty, Lance announces, just as he flings open the trailer door, making the 2 men leap apart and turn 10 different shades of red. Oh, okay, cool, Jensen stutters, peeking back at Misha, who's still smiling, but not quite as grandly as he was before. Come back over here and put your arms up again. Let's have another go at this, Lance instructs, not letting his frustration go unnoticed. Jensen nods and moves back to where he was standing before, lifting his arms above his head for a second time, taking askance glances every chance he can as Misha sits himself back into his chair. All fall silent once again, with the artists doing their work and the actors doing their best not to mess it all up for them. In fact, it's so quiet and everyone is so still that when Misha finally decides to say something, it makes everyone jump. You know, he begins, his words muffled as he does his best not to move his mouth. I've been thinking about what you suggested earlier, about your name being at the southern point. Jensen rolls his eyes, but fights the urge to move. or to hush his friend back into silence, because this conversation is not meant for everyone. Man, I was just kidding. But Misha continues on, ignoring Jensen's obvious anxiety about discussing this so publicly. And it would actually work. It just makes sense, considering who would be at the North, what she represents. I think that might actually balance everything out. Jensen wants to complain, but he's not as good with words as Misha is, and he knows that if he opens his mouth again, he'll probably give away what they're talking about. Besides, it'd be symbolic, and that especially catches Jensen's attention for all the wrong reasons. Symbolic, he asks, instantly regretting doing so, as a dark chuckle escapes his friend's lips. Yes, symbolic. After all, you're always on the bottom anyway. Needless to say, Lance isn't happy when he has to drive all the way back to his studio just to get some more supplies, because Jensen completely wrecked both his and Misha's makeup when he tackled the other man to the ground, doing his best to shush him, trying to get him to be quiet, which only succeeded in making Misha laugh even harder. End. Thanks for listening. Go ahead and leave kudos and comments if you wish on the actual fic on AO3, where you can read more Destiel and Cockles smut and fluff and feels. Thank you.